Hello everyone and welcome to My Fantasy Journey, a channel dedicated to opinion-based fantasy book reviews. Today I'm going to be talking about a book whose author is pretty well known in the fantasy genre, especially in the younger audience. I remember watching this movie on Disney Channel a long time ago. I don't know if it's a Disney Channel movie, I just remember seeing it there like a long time ago, and I remember liking it a lot. And by that time, I didn't know that it was based on a book. But then, as the time passed, I did find out that it was indeed based on a book. And I discovered this author, and I discovered, that she had more books and more stories and stuff like that. So I've had these books from her for a while now, and I always had the intention of beginning to read them, but always something else got in the way, other books got in the way, so I never really, I always had the intention, but I never really started to read them because of other books and other situations. But I finally got to read my first book from this author. It was my introduction to her work. And like I said, I do have a couple of books from her, and I've had them for a while, but I decided to go with this one because a couple of friends recommended it to me. They said that it was a really nice book that they enjoyed a lot. And I just decided to read this book as my introduction to this author. But unfortunately for me, it wasn't a good introduction at all. To be honest, I didn't really like this book at all, so that's a pity. I'm still not going to give up on the author. I have other of her books, and I'm pretty sure I'm gonna enjoy them better, from what I've seen at least, than this one. So yeah, this one unfortunately was a very disappointing, and I don't think it was the best introduction to this author, but what can you do? Sometimes that happens, so yeah. Anyways, the book that I'm going to be discussing today is The Two Princesses of Bamarre by Gail Carson Levine. So I'm going to start by saying a little bit of what this book is about. This book is about two sisters who live in the magical kingdom of Bamarre. One sister's name is Addie, Princess Addie. She's very shy. She gets scared easily. She's very kind of like this child who's very shy and very depends a lot on on other people protecting her, and she's more that type of person, while her sister Meryl, she is brave and she loves adventure. She likes to play with her sword. She dreams to go on an adventure and slay dragons someday, and defend the people of Bamarre. So even though they're very different, they love each other very much. But the kingdom of Bamarre is plagued by this illness called the Great Death. And one day, Meryl gets this illness, and she gets diagnosed with the Great Death. So she has not much time to live. And so it is pretty much Addie's task to explore the kingdom of Bamarre and go in this adventure, this perilous, dangerous adventure, in order to find a cure for the kingdom and for her sister, in order to save her sister and get rid of this this plague and this illness in Bamarre. So that is a little bit of what this book is about, just a very general summary. So I'm going to start by saying the things that I like and the things that I didn't like. Like I said, for me, this book is very disappointing. I was expecting much more from it, but it wasn't all bad either. Things that I liked to see how the main character, well, one of the main characters, even though I would say that she is the main character, Addie, I like to see how she developed throughout the story from being this shy, this very shy, scaredy kind of girl, growing into someone who's brave and who's willing to go, and face her fears for love, for the love of her sister. I think that was something that was nice, and I like to see how she overcame those fears because of love, and how she went to the adventure, and how she grew up as a character. I think that was really nice to see. The other aspect that I liked from it was the adventure aspect. I did like that, they didn't, the book actually did explore a little bit. Not as much as I would have liked to, which I'm going to talk about later, but it was pretty I would say it was pretty adventurous, you know. And she went to places, and I like that she, you know, traveled to different places in order to find the answer to her questions, and I think that was pretty cool. Another thing that I liked was the inclusion of mythical beasts. I'm gonna talk a little bit more about that later, and the things that I didn't like, which is kind of ironic, I know, but I did like that inclusion of the mythical creatures here and there. I think it was a nice touch. I did like also the world seemed really interesting. I'm gonna talk about that later as well, and the things that I didn't like. But I did find the world to be nice. I just wish it would have been better developed, but the world was all right as well. And I did like the personal aspect of, you know, loving your sister and loving your family, and, you know, doing whatever is in your power to help them, you know. I think that was really cute. So this book overall is, you know, it has like that cute, kind of adorable kind of aspect, kind of like characteristic to it, even though I feel like it wasn't the best, even though it was like that, even though it made me go, oh, sometimes it wasn't a book that made me, like, you know, deeply analyze and think and stuff like that. It was just very, very general, kind of vague in a way. But, you know, those were the main things that I like. I like that it was an adventure, and those little aspects. But as for the things that I didn't like, I don't even know where to begin. I'm just going to say the things that pop out of my head at the moment. Like I said, the world seemed really cool, but it was very flatly developed. I wish that we would have... It's not the flattest book I've read. It's pretty flat. It's not the flattest book that I've read, but the world felt like it needed to be more developed, and it would have been a really cool and interesting world. This is a short book, though, so maybe that's why. You could easily read this in one day. I read it in two. Because I like divided it. The writing is very, very, very simple, super straightforward. So this is like a very quick-paced book, and maybe that's why, you know, the world wasn't as well developed or something like that. But I wish the world would have been a little bit more big. Like I said, it's not the worst that I've read. I did like the world, but I would have liked to explore a little bit more and to know a little bit more from it. Yeah, so that's one of the things. Another one of the things that I didn't like, well, to be honest, the story for me fell flat. It didn't really, like, do much for me. It was just like an adventure, but I didn't really feel anything while reading it. It was just a little bit too... I don't know if I'm just being cynical and just, like, being... I don't know, but I don't know if it's the simplicity, because I've read a lot of simple books and that I've loved. But this one, in specific, for some reason, I didn't see myself enjoying. I just felt like it was just, I don't know, too vague and just too flat. It fell flat for me. I don't know. Another thing that I didn't like was the ending. The ending was absolutely dreadful. I think it kind of ruined the book in a way. It wasn't, of course, the worst ending, and it's not that it was like a horrible ending in maybe the way that you're thinking or something like that, but it was just weird. It was just, I didn't like what turned out of one of the sisters, and it was just weird, and that leads up to my other, to another thing that I didn't like. While I did like that she did include mythical beasts and creatures in this book, I didn't really like the way that she used them. She just, like, threw them in there a couple of times. There was just one mythical creature that had, like, an importance in this book in a way, and I think I would have even liked to see more of that character. But, you know, she just, like, took mythical creatures and just, like, sprinkled them randomly in places, and there wasn't, like, much. They just felt like, you know, they're in this book, they're ogres, there are griffons, there are dragons, there are elves, and there are fairies. And I don't know, I just feel like she didn't do that much of a good use of those creatures in this book, so that was kind of like a disappointment for me. Yeah, like I said, the ending, like I said, I didn't like at all. It just felt, And then there was also, like, this small romance that it was just unnecessary and just random. And I just feel like it didn't really go, I don't know. and I just didn't like that thing either. And there were also a lot of characters that just felt like nothing, like they didn't add anything to the story. It just made the story even more flat. There were some characters that just like, they were just annoying just for me. They were there, but it was like they didn't add anything interesting to the story at all. The main character herself, or the two princesses, they were alright. Like I said, I did like seeing the development of Addie. But even so, sometimes I found myself annoyed by her. Maybe, I don't know, because she was like young and whatever, and she was like, but she wasn't a child, but maybe it was because of her age, but I found myself being annoyed by kind of both of them, to be honest. And there was a point in the book also, that is something that I didn't like either. A point in the book when Meryl, she, I don't know, I know this is a fantasy book, but it was kind of like stupid and illogic because, even though she was sick, so to say, let's put it like that, even though she was sick with the Grey Death and she was about to die, she still did a whole bunch of things that you could never do while you were sick, especially about to die. So I think that like the desperate kind of like need of the author to turn her more into a heroine, into like a hero and stuff like that, I just feel like it didn't work. It felt like forced because it just didn't feel realistic or believable at all. It was just like weird, that she, even though she was ill like that, she could do the things that she did, which I'm not going to say because I'm not going to spoil the book for you. But that just felt illogic as well. So, yeah, so, I don't know. The characters, I barely didn't like any of them. They all fell flat for me, of course. There are books that I've read where the characters are not as deep, but I still seem to enjoy them because of the characteristics and the things that they do. But here, I didn't really see myself enjoying any of the characters. Maybe one I liked a little bit more than the others, and it wasn't even a person, so to say. But even so, I didn't really see myself enjoying the characters, or the plot even of this book was just a little bit flat and dull, and I don't know, for me it was just, like I said, I don't know, maybe I'm just being cynical, but I don't know, overall this book I found really disappointing, and yeah, and there were a lot of things that I didn't like, and sometimes I saw myself being like, I didn't find myself wanting to return to read it. I did read it because it was really short, and I was just like, this is like a super short book, I'll finish this in 2 days, so let me just get it over and done with. So that's why I read it. If not, I think I would have stopped reading it, because it was just, I don't know, I just feel like it wasn't that well developed in a way. And like I said, there was something in the end that really made me desperate, and well, I'm not gonna say this because I'll spoil the book for you, but with Addie, something that happens with her and her sister that just made me really like, what's the point of this book then? Like, what was the point of her going where she went, and and just like, I don't see, like, it was pretty much all in vain in a way. I don't know. It was so like, it just made me feel like, ooh, so angry. Well, not angry, but just made me go like, ugh. So, yeah, overall, those are the things that I can get out of my head right now. For the things that I didn't like, I'm pretty sure there are more. But I just overall didn't enjoy the story, and pretty much, I to be honest, I wouldn't really recommend this book to anyone unless you're into Gail Carson Levine and you want to read all her books or something, or if you're into, well, having that in my mouth, let's then talk about who I would recommend it to. I would recommend this to someone who is looking for a very quick paced fantasy, and even so, let me tell you, there's so many much better quick paced fantasy books out there. I don't think this is the best choice for you, even though you're looking for that. There's so many much better books out there that you can read that are quick also than this one. But I guess if you're into Gail Carson Levine, if you want to like hoard her books, if you have like a collection from hers and you haven't read it, then maybe read it just for that. But this is not the best story. But if you like kind of like short fantasy adventures, um, if you don't mind it being kind of like, I wouldn't say silly, but kind of like just, mm, I don't even know how to describe it. If you don't mind that the book is a little bit like, maybe that is the best. I don't know how to say it in English. Maybe that is the best way to describe it. Just like sometimes it just feel like irrational. I don't know if that's like the right term, but if you don't mind a book that has elements that just don't really like go there, and I don't know, not well developed elements, and you just want like a quick paced adventure, and and you don't mind those things, then maybe you can give this book a chance. But even so, if you're a fan of Gail Clarkson Levine, then maybe you can also read it. But other than that, I don't really recommend it to much people. If you're into fairy tales, of course, you might like it, but this is a pretty mediocre one, to be honest. It was a very mediocre, fairy tale. Like I said, the elements were like the way that they were used was not good. The fairy tale elements just felt like flat and not well developed, and also like the creatures and the fantasy elements just felt a little bit not very well used. Who would I not recommend this to? I think that speaks for itself. If you're into like epic fantasy, of course. If you're very picky with your fairy tales and you like well written ones, then I wouldn't recommend this book. Of course, if you're looking for something more complex, much more developed, with much more depth, and and stuff like that, then I wouldn't recommend this book. If you're looking for something that speaks to you, that's more, I mean, like I said, it does have like a personal aspect that it's like cute, with the love of the sisters and stuff like that. But if you're looking for books that make you analyze and think a lot, and books that are more complex and that are just much better developed and much better written, and you're very picky with that, and you feel like you don't have time for silly books on fantasy, then don't go for this one, because you'll feel disappointed. So if you're more into epic fantasy and more serious, more well developed, I mean, this is like a kind of like a young audience book, but still, I've read a lot of other young audience books that have been much better, so that's not an excuse either. But yeah, if you're looking for that, like I said, then this book might not be for you. But I mean, if you're bored and you see it somewhere, if you see it in your library and you're interested, a lot of people did like it. That's just me saying that I didn't like it, but who knows, you might. So I don't say don't read it either, because, that's kind of, that's just my opinion. But if you see it in your library and you're interested and you feel like reading something short, and you don't mind that it's a little bit mediocre and just like kind of and if you just want to read a really quick adventure, then sure, give it a try. But other than that, there are much better books out there than this one, and they're short also. So yeah, that's The True Princess of Bamarre by Gail Carson Levine. So I end up giving this book a 2.8 out of 5. I know it sounds a little bit cruel, and it sounds mean, but that's just my opinion. I was very disappointed by this book. Like I said, I'm not going to give up on this author. I still have quite a couple of books from her, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to like the other ones better. Maybe I was expecting something else from this book. I was expecting something more lighthearted, maybe something in the vein of El Enchanted, which is the movie that I was talking about, and the book that I was talking about. Maybe in that vein, that's a little bit more witty, more funny. It's not that this book is oppressive or anything, but maybe the elements of it made it also a little bit more dull. But maybe I was expecting something in the vein of El Enchanted, or so to say, the Enchanted Forest Chronicles by Patricia Reed or something like that. So maybe that's what happened, but I'm not sure. In the end, I didn't like it. So yeah, so 2.8 out of 5 is my final rating for The Two Princesses of Bamarre. So have you guys read this book? Have you guys read more books by Gail Carson Levine? Have you read El Enchanted? Have you read Fairest, A Tale of Two Castles? Are you a fan of her books? Did you grow up reading her books? I know a lot of people did. Have you watched the movie Enchanted? Did you like it? Do you like it better than the book? Of course, that usually never happens. Do you like the book better, which is more likely, probably? What do you think? Did you like this book at all? Do you agree with the things that I say? Do you disagree with them? Let me know your opinion. Let's talk about the Princess of Bamarre, the two Princesses of Bamarre. Let's talk about Gail Carson Levine, and let's talk all about books. So yeah, join me in the comment section, and if you want to see more cool book reviews on really magical, nice books, then join me on my journey. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you on my next review. Read on. Bye.